I like wooden nickels. This one is from the old firehouse. We could debate why it has an Indian head on the um, front of it, but then it's the size of a Kennedy half. We could debate whether there's Kennedy appears on the as a decapitated head. Somewhere around here, very not long ago, had the wooden nickel of the Office of Student Engagement. Here it goes. I'd like to think of this video as an invitation to student engagement, but there's a problem with the rivalries in Seattle. The smackdown mentality is when research is needed, they refuse to do it because they already know everything. And their one-upmanship kicks in. You know, they want to outdo each other, and it's a form of peer harm. It's not attractive characteristic in the Collegiate Society of Seattle. I had thought better of them, and I know better now, but there's another caveat that I wanted to mention. It has to do with what's going on in Gaza right now in March of 2024. Well, the people who I'm going to talk about are presenting a moral framework. And it's important to remember that they're massacring thousands and thousands of children, leaving them disabled for life with amputated limbs, sometimes without anesthetic, that they're cruel, extraordinarily cruel people, and that there's nothing redeeming about what they're doing. So the moral framework that they're lauding themselves for coming up with is it's a fraud. And I'll talk a little bit about how it operates in the mindset of the people they have targeted. It doesn't mean that there isn't a moral argument to be made about some of the issues that they're discussing. It just means that they're not sincere. Now, what I want to talk to you about is a series of issues that arise from the culture that committed a sexual genocide in the 80s. It was revealed as a higher command operation, but never investigated. And what it says about the society that plumbs the depths of such idiocy without ever addressing what has happened and gone wrong. When you look at the origins of cinema, you see the popularity that gangsterism that is in Hollywood cinema has its roots in the great dictators crowd. D'Annunzio was in a place called Fayoum, a contested sovereignty zone between Croatia, Habsburg, and Italy. And he was a friend of Mussolini. He inspired Mussolini, the great dictator. So it is important to understand that Fayoum's counterfeiting dens were the people who got their hands on American cinema, because D'Annunzio also had a acolyte named Luigi Freddi, who introduced Mussolini to D.W. Griffith, who was bowled over with the mindset of the great dictators and glorified the Ku Klux Klan in America. So Fayum's early reputation is often compared to Woodstock. Now, that's very significant because the Hair operation, the Broadway musical Hair, they came on the heels of the murder of suit and tie gentlemen Martin Luther King and Robert Fitzgerald Kennedy, told everybody to undress for human traffickers, and evolved into the AIDS attackers saying, "Give me sodomy or give me death." So Fayum was compared to Woodstock, and one of the reasons is because Freddie Luigi founded Italian Futurist Cinema. Italian cinema through the group of futurists who were sort of an annex of Cubists, where fourth dimensional psychology was at work, and some very strange parochial minds like Gurdjieff and Ouspensky. So, since he founded it, and Marinetti, the founder of Italian Futurism, glorified war. Okay, so Luigi Freddi clearly, and the Italians are passionate people. This is a decadent culture, clearly understood pornography and its potentials. Well, in the 20s, Duke Edward, who was scheduled to become king, but he was too friendly with Adolf Hitler for Winston Churchill to endure it, came to New York to extol the idea that Hollywood belonged in the hands of the Church of England. Now, where this led to was the University of Pittsburgh organizing Two Virgins Pussy Ball violence, a murder and snuff cartel, clock to the AIDS attack in the name of someone named Shiona, which is an allusion to the cinema system, Vengeance of Shiona. My father wrote a book called Humanizing the School. Now, it's important to think about that because in Pittsburgh, whenever you say humanizing the school, in the East End, they say womanizing the school. And the cinema makers who prey on the parochial mindset come in and start talking about the dens of devils. And in the history of pornography, you see the Publishers Project. It's written by a book man named Montgomery Hyde, which is like Jekyll and Hyde. Jekyll and Hyde led to the script by Gail Burstyn, which is what Linda Burstyn from The Exorcist changed her name to Burstyn to signify the idea that in the cathode ray tube they were conjuring the devil. Well, Dale Rogers, the Time Out lady, describes the fact that the women of the Midwest are not themselves often attractive for long periods of time, but the loyalty that they generate is very real. And there was a sense that there was a values tension in existence between the romantic society of artists and the kind of people who get talked about in magazines, hint, hint, perverts. Diaghilev had a acquaintance who committed suicide when he found his wife, as Drummond puts it, en flagrant with another man. So you have these specters of fire and brimstone emerging from casual liberal society and the Cubist movement being talked about by the mystics of Adolf Hitler. Well, John Wayne was considered to be the He-Man of America and said to be on the right side of things. Strangely, though, he is at root of the semiotics. Martha Gellhorn cuts a different example. She was a woman who was a friend of Eleanor Roosevelt, who used to sleep with men at the front, she said, because it meant so much to them. And they were going out to dine. It meant so little to her. Women are women. I mean, they should be engaged in this conversation. If anything makes me angry, it's their evasion and stupidity in playing the angles the way they and tolerating it the way the male society do in Pittsburgh and Seattle. It's outrageous. So Wayne appears in one of his army movies. The only time you see real Japanese soldiers is when Wayne runs for the pillbox. And it's impossible to miss the semiotics of the idea that you only get real Japanese with him. And he's photographed with Lee Harvey Oswald and Neva Mess Hall. It's only a hop, skip, and a jump from the Carousel Club of Jack Ruby, who had the same psychiatrist as Charlie Manson, and the people who kidnapped and tortured me for the Neva Corporation in Shiono in Pittsburgh were named Mancine, by the way. From Jack Ruby's Carousel Club to Cirque du Imbecile and the Money of Trumpy Tune, the beauty pageants. So the real Hooters of the upper class. So the sexual antagonism that exists between Midwest ladies and Trump's menagerie is partly the root of the class struggle. And what they do is something that's called spotlighting. Spotlighting is when you turn a light on the deer and it freezes. They use spotlighting when they talk about, did you lust of the heart? Oh, you spotlight the psychology of the person. He's going to be exposed in magazines. And with this stuff about coulda saved John Lennon stuff, they spotlight the issues. But Wayne clearly was on the side of the people in Fayoum. And they use some pretty scary symbolism. Like when you look at the murder of the Gaza children, I think back to not just the strange thing that happened in the Maui Inferno, but Uvalde. Uvalde looks like a heartbeat signature of Univoce, which was the name of the magazine this military contraption here in Tacoma had me working on. And they have You Have all day. They just let them do it, you know. So just like Biden is letting Netanyahu, you have all day, Netanyahu. Go ahead and have your fun. And behind this is the snickering fundamentalist tripartite. They had this image, and they froze up my iPhone on this image of empty crypts. Where are you going? You know. Now, while I'm very sympathetic to the idea that the soul is at stake in tolerating the genocide in Gaza, I can see from the way it's presented, the way that the Islamic extremists may have deliberately provoked what's happening in order to intensify the derision of Trump and Mick Jagger. Because the alliance that exists in this cause goes back to Penis Gabriel and Jalsander. Jalsander was from Senegal, and he angled right at the hide bursting neuroplasm with a yammer, and Yoko Kurgono and Elon Musk brainwaves the seizures after they got a hardy to come and blow it up. Then they called it setting the tea kettle off, which is the reason why I pointed out to Ohio State authorities that Wadmaker and McKenzie were in brain research in prison. Who made the neurohypnotic hallucinogen that Mackenzie Shirilla seems to have been poisoned with. Now, Wadmaker's friend Tony Servi had a book too. It was called Why Not Swap? And the idea that they would enlist Midori Goto as a hottie for the Fayum Two Virgins Pussy Bowl pit evolved into Seattle's Antarctic Harmony, which was the compens, the key for service in wonder. And this is to cover for this monstrosity from the parochial savage. I mean, everybody wants better education about fidelity and the virtues of family economics, and a planet of armed lust and dying species. But they come up with this thing like the effect of tropical light on the white man. So they have this wise who Midori has made a jest of for the Antarctic Harmony of Green Party's black man. And they consider this an answer to society. It's why Mick Jagger had a real jumping hole in Tel Aviv, having partying, making his Hitlerian grunts. He was having a good old time, yeah.